Welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line, the podcast where we meet people from business, charities and politics who are a force for good. In each episode, I talk to my guests about their inner side and how their internal changes have led to their outer success stories. We talk about the failures, spirituality and sometimes the painful experiences that have made them the unique individuals they are today. The main aim being for us to learn from and be inspired by them for our own lives. So, if you desire change in yourself and the world around you, do keep listening. And please remember to hit subscribe on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss an episode. Hello, my name is Paul Hargreaves. I'm the founder and Chief Empowerment Officer of Cotswold Fair and Flourish, two businesses that put people and planet before profit. In 2015, we became one of the first B Corps in the UK, and I've written two books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. I'm passionate about changing the world for better, and realised many years ago that to do this, we must also change ourselves. The outer impact of people, planet and profit has to be mirrored by an inner change, and that's what I call my fourth bottom line.
Funny enough, one of the pieces of advice I got was join the army. And the irony is I'd already done that, because when I was 13, I joined the army, and I obviously lied on all my forms. And Dad, yes, because I was too young. Yeah. And the army recruiting officer came round to the house and said, "Is Nigel?" He said, "No, he's at school." He said, "Well, he signed the papers. He's joining the army." And he went, "Is he? Right. Well, I might have to have a chat with him about that, and maybe he won't be this. Not in the next 6 months anyway."
Give you a ring in 3 years.
No, funny enough. And I thought, well, I'll go join the army. Dressing up box. It'll suit me.
How your life might have been different. If
yes.
You had.
Yeah.
My guest today is Nigel Barden. Known to most people in the world of food and drink, Nigel has worked as a broadcaster for 30 years. Currently working on Greatest Hits Radio with Simon Mayo, he also worked with Chris Evans and Simon on Radio 2 for 12 years, and Robert Elms on BBC Radio London for 30. You can probably work out roughly how old you are now, but
very precocious I was. I was only 4 when I started.
Nigel specialises in promoting British ingredients and artisan producers, bringing many unknown food producers into the public eye. He is also chair of judges for far too many food awards to mention, but most notably he chairs the judging panel at the Great Taste Awards, which for those who don't know are the Oscars of the food world. In a former life, Nigel was a director of a fine wines company. He grew up on a farm in Lancashire, studied land agency at the Royal Ag College and worked in Yorkshire as a land agent. Nigel is also a BBC rugby commentator and trained as an actor. That's what you call an eclectic career. We'll come on to some of that. Someone who knows him well told me that Nigel always surprises me and he can talk his way into anywhere. Nigel, welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line. So talking your way into any, I think we're talking exclusive VIP events that you weren't meant to be at, and you've managed to give me one example of somewhere you've talked yourself into.
Oh, Barry Blagg, yeah. Rolling Stones backstage gig, no tickets. Yeah, just managed to go up to the guest list and say, hi, I'm not sure anyone hasn't shown up. Knowing full well, quite a few people who wouldn't have shown up at Hyde Park particularly. So it was great. So yeah, just access pretty good at all areas, and brought my mate in as well. So I've done, it was funny actually, because my son, we've got 3 lads, and the eldest is 25, works in hospitality, funnily enough, front of house, does wine lists. And when he was at Leeds Uni, he rang me up and they said, on a Saturday night, I just come back from an event, and he said, "Hi Dad, how are you?" He rang me up, I said, "Yeah, I'm all right, Sam." I was kind of surprised that he was here on a Friday. And he said, "Yeah, I'm at Leeds Fest." I said, "Are you?" He said, "That's great." He said, "Yeah." He said, "It's all packed, can't get in." And I was just wondering if you could help me get in. I'm here with Harry. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we're at the guest bit press, what have you." He said, "And I've spoken to the lady, and if you send them an email, Harry and I might be able to get in." And I went, "Oh my So I had to on this. I just got it. So I had to put this email together, and if enough, he got in. He got a weekend pass. To this day, I've no real idea
Well,
why.
maybe you should run training courses.
Well,
for
there you
people in
go.
how to get into events they're not meant to.
But anyway, I know I've digressed right from the beginning, which is obviously
I knew that might be a challenge to get you on track. But I want to start with your childhood because it seems like a good place to start. Also, to some degree, and greater with other people than others, we are formed by our upbringing and our parents and schools, etc. So talk to me a bit about your childhood. What was it like? Mum and Dad, what did they do?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, although we didn't actually farm it. Dad was in business, and I was one of 4 children, I've got 2 elder brothers. I had a sister who was a couple of years older than me, but she'd already died when I was born, so I was like the miracle child because she didn't really survive very long. So Mum was told not to have any more children, and she did. She actually had. I was born at home on the farm, and we had an amazing old house exactly halfway between London and Edinburgh on the at Affett side, but on one of the pilgrims' walks.
Okay.
It was ours was the old Pilgrim's Rest House, which was when Mum and Dad bought it. 3/4 of it was derelict, and they lived in a caravan and did it all up. And as we got bigger, the 3 boys, they did more and more stuff to it. So it was a pretty remarkable life on the farm. So all my first jobs were on the farm.
So someone was farming it then.
But we wasn't us.
Right.
But I lived, and that's what So I could drive a tractor from a pretty early age, and we mainly it was mixed farming, so it was beef, sheep, cows, pigs, etc. We didn't do any arable or anything like that. And then the holiday job was be working in the local abattoir. So, it was quite basic. But if you're going to eat something, know how it's reared and slaughtered and everything. I think that's really key. Nose to tail dining is something I've always been really important. And that was it. And 2 big brothers, and it was I went to a convent school across the fields to start with, as early as I can remember. I loved that.
Convent?
Yeah.
I thought they were not. They're female.
But Catholic. No, convents were, it was Hollymount Convent in Lancashire. And I was the only non-Catholic lad in the school, I think, but I loved it. It was a great school. And Sister Lavinus was the one, because you always had a nun who looked after you, and she used to pull me towards her and give me lots of hugs, and she always smelt very well scrubbed, and it was good. And I got on well with my brothers. We're really different characters, but we rub along, and we still do. And all our kids, and we've got 9 between us, all get on really well. And my lot are much younger than the others, but who are now having other children. But no, it was pretty good. In fact, Mum ever said if ever she was ill, her eldest son, Robert, would look after her health because he's a doctor. The middle one, Douglas, would look after her finances because he was an accountant. Yeah. And the younger one, Nigel, was probably the reason that she was ill in the first place. and I'm thinking, that's quite rude, Mother. And she said that in public
So why do you think your parents sent you to a Catholic school when you weren't Catholic? Was there any...
It was 2 fields away.
Okay,
it was just
locality.
Yeah. So, and then...
But what was there a spiritual or religious element to your upbringing?
No.
Or not?
No, not at all, really. I mean, I think we were nominally C of E.
Yeah.
So we would all, we got married in churches, and, we buried lots of family. Yeah, from that side. So it was there. But the spiritual side for me is definitely about, how, as you say, where I'm from, how you treat people. If you, I mean, you're a northern boy. Great adage is, you get back in life what you give out. And I think the longer I've been, yes, I know we'll touch on that later. But no, it was good. Growing up. And then, I actually went away to school when I was 7, which is pretty young. My brothers were 9. Went to a place called Turnover in Holmes Chapel in Cheshire. And no doubt Mum and Dad did think it was doing the best things for us. And went to a place called Sedbergh in the Lake District.
Yeah, I know that.
So Dad went there, and I was 13 when I went there. Middle of nowhere, you couldn't run away in the winter, you get exposure, and it was... funny enough, but I never... None of our kids are particularly, we've not sent them away or anything like, or my brothers either. It's not that we hated it or something. It's just that it's, my wife, grew up in Italy, so it's a complete anathema to send
a lot of
kids away.
people do hate going to boarding school.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a disproportionate number of people on this podcast, actually, many of whom are CEOs who have absolutely hated it for reflection, and, some of them have had to have therapy to get over the trauma. not for you?
No, I mean, I've heard of it, public school therapy.
Because 7's even younger than many, actually.
Yeah, that was really young. And poor old mum, at the end of a long summer holiday, the house would be like a morgue. And she always, she dabbled in politics and stuff and did that. So she'd make sure that she always had a busy diary to do stuff.
Why do you think they did that then?
I just think they thought it was that, and they strived really hard to do it. It wasn't as though they had shed loads of money. I think they just thought it was the best education that they could offer us. And in hindsight, it wasn't definitely said, but then academically it wasn't actually. But I've got some really good mates, and because I played a lot of sport, that side came quite naturally. But so we all played sport, all three brothers. But the best thing that came out of school like that was my friendship group, and I've got some great mates.
You're still mates now?
Yeah, I am, and my youngest friend was who I met when I was 7, Simon Davis. There you go, and he's. And it's funny when we get together, we're not very nostalgic about the old days. We're still of the same mindset, and I like that. And I think maybe that sense of independence. Sebba's now a co-educational school, which has got to be much better. I mean, it's the only thing that saved the school was getting girls in, and that had to be. It's a much more civilised place.
I agree with that. I mean, I went to an all-boys school, Manchester Grammar, but not boarding school. But I'd be interested to know if you're the same. It took me probably 10 years after leaving the school to actually learn how to relate to the opposite sex in a better way. Was that the same for you?
Well, being the youngest of lots of lads, I was probably quite precocious, really. And probably, I wouldn't say I was bumptious, but I was probably quite confident. And I had no idea why. But maybe, again, Mum and Dad gave us that. They were there to pick us up if we fell over. And my brothers always, gave me some advice if I needed it, and a good thump occasionally if I didn't, or if I really did. And I was just lucky like that. I was never short of confidence. I have no idea why particularly, but so I was a lucky one, because there are lots of other mates who still will talk back and say they didn't enjoy it when they were there, and they did miss home terribly. And I fully understand that, and I could see that at the time, and there were some poor kids who just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it probably helps that you were extrovert rather than introvert. I think some places like that are really difficult if you're an introvert, aren't they?
Yeah, tough.
Well, obviously, we come on to what you've done in your life, but thinking back to when you were a teenager, did you have any dreams of what you wanted to do with your life? Obviously, you've done quite a lot.
Yeah, I did.
Was any one of them, yes, I'm going to really do that when I'm older? Or?
Yeah, I always thought I would be an actor or end up in the arts.
Okay.
And that was probably my calling. But as I was leaving school, Dad died quite suddenly. So he had a heart attack. And he was, I think he was 50. He might even been younger than that, 49. And I was 18, obviously. So that definitely affected my career moves and everything. And for a while, my behaviour was quite strange, and everyone thought, it's because I was grieving. It's actually because I got glandular fever, but no one diagnosed it. So I would be wandering around, sweating and stuff, and the landing, and Mum's always in the cupboard again. And therefore I did go down the land agency route, because I grew up on a farm and I loved all the rural pursuits, and I knew all about that, and growing up on a farm, I reared pheasants and so went to Cirencester to do the state management course. But because I was quite ill as well, I was late starting. And I had done some time before that, in that year out, but I'd actually gone to be in the Lake District. I was a tree surgeon, and before that I worked on a dairy farm in Somerset. So I played rugby for Frome, and it was at Wanstro between Frome and Shepton Mallet. So whenever I go back to the Bath and West show or anything like that, it's like the area I knew really well. And I loved that part of the world as well. And I didn't know it all, but I did, and left there eventually with a dog, which came to Cirencester with me. But I was quite ill, so I was a bit delayed. So I did a year at Ciren. So
you wanted to be an actor, but then your dad died. I don't quite understand how your dad died and changed.
Oh, I think I just thought everyone suggested you should get a career first. That was the advice. Maybe later on you might ask me about advice. And that was the advice. Not that I thought it was bad advice, because I think I'm very happy where I am and how the journey I've been on, without doubt. But at the time, definitely changed what my career choices, without doubt. Yeah.
Safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most parents, I know a couple of people who are actors. It's probably, or actor or musician are the two things that parents really don't want their children to be, because there's no money in it for most people.
Funny enough, my mum's father, Bob Grimshaw, was an archetypal Yorkshireman, lived to 103, used to have a tannery in Armley in Leeds opposite the jail, and called Grimshaw's, one of many children. And he was a great friend to me and a great friend to my father. Yeah. And he was the one who told me Dad had died, and he was just. And I went, I moved to Yorkshire to work as a land agent, and I ended up living with him and my Aunt Shirl, who was a very glamorous actor, very good golfer. Everyone was good sports people, but golfers particularly. And Pops, when I told him that I was going to go to drama school at 30, which is what I eventually did, and took a year out from being a successful wine merchant, which is I moved on a bit here because I ended up being a wine merchant, obviously. And he was brilliant, just from considering his background and how he did a job for life in those days. When I said, look, I'm going to take a year out, my chairman's given me a year off, and I'm going to go to drama school, what have you, and have my cruciate ligament operated on at the same time before I go, just as you do, so you can arrive on crutches. And he just said, well, good on you, lad. He said, you've always wanted to do it, crack on and do it. And I remember thinking, that is brilliant advice from someone who was probably in his 80s by then. And it was a really, the fact that I got full support of all my family.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you actually was, who was the first person that believed in you? It might not be him, that's probably later, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Mum and Dad and everything, I was lucky, Aunt Shirl, the one I've talked about, who's the actor. They were all, it sounds pretty idyllic, but they were all incredibly supportive, really. I can't remember them saying, don't be daft, don't be stupid.
Yes. No, it's good that you had someone that was encouraging you to follow your dreams.
Yeah.
Because so many people don't.
I know.
I mean, the more, the older I get, the more people I run across my kind of age who have a lot of regrets about what they've done, probably because they were, probably doing what you started to do, is, right, this is a safe bet, accountant, lawyer, or whatever. And actually, they never wanted to do that. It was pressure from various people, probably parents and other people. But it took you 10 years, but you just followed your dreams at 30.
Yeah, and funny enough, and being a land agent in Yorkshire actually was in many ways a brilliant job. We had some fantastic country estates we looked after. There was a fantastic grouse moor called Dallagill, and I remember going up there. I was about 21, so young, and there was a guy called, I think it was called Godfrey Bostock, who had it. And he was amazing. He was about 80-odd years old, turned up on a BMW 1000 with a full-piece leather, biker suit and his leather attaché case on the back of his motorbike, and take me up there on the back. And I remember thinking, what? This is amazing. This is fantastic. This guy's amazing. And he was amazing. And people like that, I'm thinking, he wasn't thinking, I'm whatever age I am. He said, I'm going to make sure that my shoot's the best, and the local pub can't offer rooms. I'm going to buy the pub and build a wing and put rooms in it for people. So all of that actually was pretty good. It was really chance meetings, through sport and what have you. And someone said, there was a guy, Caxton Wines were who brought in Rioja, the first people, Market de Cáceres. And there was a guy called Chris Fielden, and all our family had played rugby and cricket with the Fieldens, and John Arlott was in that business, a cricket commentator. Yeah. So when they all met me, we said, you'd be good in the wine business. And I remember thinking, and what I loved about it, and thinking about it, I said, wine, but wouldn't be a bad wine merchant, And also I loved it because on one level, it was very basic farming, just growing grapes, vines, and then all the way from Van Ordinaire right up to Château Lafite and Krug and whatever, and amazing Taylor's ports, and everything in between. So, all the wines around the world, meeting great people. So when they discussed it with me, I thought, actually, I would love to be a wine merchant. And I absolutely...
And how long were you doing that for?
Well, nearly a decade.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was early 30s when I moved south. And I loved it.
And it's helpful now for what you're doing now, isn't it?
Yeah, but Yorkshire Fine Wine, so I joined. We are absolutely immersed. So every day the tasting room, there'd be 6 to 10 wines available.
Did you start that, or were you working for someone else?
No, I was working for an already established company. No, they after I'd left, actually, they got bought out by Bibendum. And, but we sold a lot of wine. And I really loved it. We had a great sales force. I actually left them to join another company, Bakewell Vintners, Bakewell in Derbyshire, because I wanted to do board buying and selling. And I was more office bound, looking after the wines, but I wanted to be out there, meeting people to sell. So I left them, joined Bakewell Vintners. Yorkshire Farmers didn't like it that much because I kept taking their accounts, like the Devonshire Arms at Bolton Abbey. And so they went and bought the company I'd moved to and then brought me back and made me a sales director at 23 or 4. So, and most of our sales force were older than me. So that was quite sobering, excuse the pun. But actually, it was brilliant. And we had a lot of fun. And just talking about empowering people, we worked from our chairman's country house and then we built one, in the grounds of that, our own offices. But at the end of our Monday morning sales meeting, I'd get everyone to stand up. And Hill Street Blues was a big thing on the TV at the time. And everyone get up. And I remember that marvellous scene. So my first thing as sales director, with all these guys, all these double-barreled people and everything, I stood up and said, I made sure everyone saluted each other. I said, be careful on the streets, because that's what he did in Hill Street Blues. Of course, everyone started laughing. And off we went, and we sold shed loads of wine. And very quick, what we did, we put in wine lists to hotels, restaurants, pubs up the Dales. Never wear a jacket or a suit because they think you're the VAT man or something. So you just go up there in your jumper and everything. Get them to taste, always sampling stuff. But if you put it in and guaranteed the prices and would print the wine list for them, it was marvellous because they knew exactly how much they were making margin-wise. And then if anything changed vintage-wise or producer, we'd just reprint the wine list for them.
Good customer service, isn't
it? Well, but it's such a basic thing.
Yeah, but they're probably not doing that now, are they?
No, well, no, and that I was in the halcyon days of the wine business, without doubt, and I met some brilliant restaurateurs, hoteliers, and chefs, and that's where my great love of it. I mean, I always cooked a bit, but that's when I spent quite a lot of time and realising what a rare breed chefs are.
Right. So you love food, love wine, and obviously that's what you do now. Talk to me about the acting then. What was it that was? What triggered that change? Because it sounded like you were really enjoying the wine
I did.
trade. So why leave it?
That's a very, very good point. I was, sales director on the board, and the day I asked my chairman for a year out, he was the day he was going to ask me to run the company, CEO. And funny enough, it's one of those biggest strengths in life is know your own weaknesses. And I would have been appalling CEO, I think, because I'd have been in the office all the time. All I wanted to do was get out there. And even as a sales director, I still made sure I always had my own accounts because I needed to get out and see people. If you're good at selling, it doesn't mean to say you're going to be a good sales director. But in the back of my mind, I wasn't married and I was in a position because I've always been quite a surrealist. You know that. You've spent enough time on the stage with me and hosting events and things. And I always see the funny, quirky sides to things. And as a kid, I'd always have voices in my head and different things and what have you. So I just thought, I want to get on. I've always wanted to act. It didn't happen when I was leaving school. So
what, did you go to drama school?
Yeah, I did. That's exactly what I did.
3 years?
I did a year.
Right.
Because I went to the British American Drama Academy, BARDA. Sounds like RADA, BARDA. And Regent's Park. So a lot of American young actors coming over to study Shakespeare and Chekhov and what have you, because in the summer we'd go off to Balliol in Oxford. But I did the course where it was aimed at European-based people and quite a few more mature students. So my co-partner was Raphael McAuliffe, and I know that because he and I went on to set up a theatre company the day we left school, because we both had business backgrounds. He was an accountant, so we knew about the business side, and we thought there's no point. We've got to create work for ourselves because it won't happen otherwise. And his Mrs. Lynn Parsons was working on Radio 1, I think, at the time, and she's a DJ who I've seen and works on. I still work with. So we knew what we were doing when we set up the About Time Theatre Company, because it was about time. But at the same time, a friend of mine was working at the BBC, Great London Radio, which is BBC station for London, and said, we've just got this lad who's been working at Piccadilly in Manchester, and he was producing and working on Timmy Mallett's show, and they got sacked together for one prank too many. There you go, you see. And he went, and he said he's called Round at Chrissy's with his missus. I said... And it was Round at Chrissy without his missus, back with his missus, and eventually definitely single. So it says a lot about this Chris, who was Chris Evans. And I was, this mate of mine was a producer there, and he married an old friend of mine from Yorkshire. And he said, Nigel, come in, talk about restaurants. We'll even let you go to some restaurants, but make people laugh and make it entertaining, because this guy, Chris, is coming on afterwards. So we did, and we met in 1990, and became good mates
So
ever
your
since.
year at drama school, and then how soon after that was the radio?
It was all the same time.
So all the same.
I was
So you
juggling. After about 6 weeks, I was on the
right.
radio.
So you never really did the acting?
Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah.
No, I did. I had a theatre company for 3 or 4
Okay,
years, I
right.
think. So
Touring, was that?
Yeah. So wherever I toured, there was always a BBC studio. So you would do stuff back to the BBC. We weren't on Broadcasting House there. We were in Marylebone High Street, which was brilliant because that's where I met Tommy Vance. I met Emma Freud. I met Bob Harris, and it was and the studio downstairs. But I mean, Zeppelin had played there. There was Queen, everyone like that. Chris Morris. I remember Chris Morris, he'd been up all night from Brassai. He'd been recording all night. And he used to wear a cape in those days. Of course he did. And he's quite tall. And he was like having Dracula coming down in the morning as I was trying to edit something. By the way, we used to edit those days, not on phones and all that. We used on pieces of tape. And you would stick them together with you cut them with a mark with a Chinagraph pencil, cut them with a razor blade, and then stick them together. And if you were in a really rush and you'd put it on, you'd often play it backwards. Believe me, that is the voice of experience. But great GLR, Great London Radio, was fantastic. And Matthew Bannister, who ran it, then went on to do Radio 1. So all this alumni, Danny Baker, all these people are all over. And I met them all, Peter Curran and Gideon Coe, Fee Glover, all these brilliant broadcasters. And I still see them all the time because in different places. And that's great. And it's like the food and drink community. It's a very special community. And it's like, the extended family that the Varellis you get on with. And from the early days when I was talking about, and I would like, Charlie Campin was a great mate of mine. He wrote for the Evening Standard, and he would get off the beaten culinary path and go around and find great Sudanese restaurants in Clacton and what have you, and Neapolitan, not Neapolitan, but it would be near. But he'd go not the West End. He'd always go and find these great Peruvian restaurants that no one else would go to, and reflected the cosmopolitan nature of London. And that's what I did when I was reviewing restaurants. And I'm such an pathetic optimist. I want every meal to be the best ever. And I knew if it was going to be a tough review, that was hardest because I didn't want to, but I knew it was their livelihoods. So I always wanted to find
tricky,
good or try and be positive and say, if you did this, your business mind. Or a few times, if it was really appalling, I didn't even do it because I couldn't, I'd just break my heart. I was such a softie, I couldn't do it.
So optimism is, I talked to a couple of people who know you better than me, and that was a word that came through, as was enthusiasm. So I'm interested in it because you are, I know the public side of you, and you're incredibly positive, enthusiastic, joy de vivre type person. Where's that come from? Because not everyone is like you, are they? No,
and I wouldn't say I'm always like that. I mean, for instance, even... I've had a PA of 26 years. She's North London, brilliant. We're like midweek, misses, and she a couple. We're fantastic. But 2 days a week we work together. But and she is such the opposite. She's incredibly meticulous, great at detail, great at running the Barden Empire, and all the things I'm rubbish at. But she'd hate to go on stage. So we've rubbed along really well in all that time. And she still puts up with me type of thing. So I've known her longer than my children have been born. Our eldest is 25. And she would just know that I'm not good on my own. I'm like a kid, I'm like, and I have to be quite disciplined about, because I obviously write stuff and write scripts and I'm always, but I like seeing people. And that's, if I'm, suddenly get a bit down or something, hit the black dog barking in the distance, and I think, oh my, get out there and see some people, or at least get on my bike and go for a run. I'm having played sport up till 30, and I still cycle around London and what have you. Cycled here today, and is that I need that, I exercise and conversation. Otherwise, I just don't like spending a lot of time on my own. And also, I music. I love music, but my wife thinks, you can occasionally have silence, and, but I'm not very good with it. I just love music, love chatting, and that's when I'm at my best.
I mean, some people would, and I'm not saying it's true of you at all, but they might think that's pushing stuff away that you might have to think about if you don't like silence. I mean, I talk about silence quite a bit, and I think sometimes we get to know ourselves in the silence. Do you have any times when you do that?
Oh yeah, and to do, and having read through your book, the fourth bottom line, very good too, is that I think there is we've got a couple of dogs, and I love going out with them. And funny enough, I don't listen to lots of podcasts like when I'm walking, because I just sometimes like to engage with being in wherever I am, the countryside or whatever, and with the dogs. So I haven't really got a problem with that. It's just. Without doubt, there will be weird stuff going. And again, I've listened to various of your podcasts, and very good, they are too. And Amy Kington and Pip Murray and Michelle Mills and what have you. And sometimes the ADHD thing is, which obviously is thank goodness, is way more talked about now. And Nando Iannucci was interviewed by Robin Ince at the Berkhamsted Book Festival, which I co-host with Robin. And Nando said that to say that a comedian has ADHD is like saying they've got skin, because it's one of the main things. And I remember thinking, yeah, absolutely right. And so I probably do suffer from that. But I need to focus, and I use CBT as well, because I need to be more organised, and it again drives my PA.
So you haven't been diagnosed?
No, but without doubt, I don't need to be diagnosed. I'm not going to take any medication for it. No. So I'm sure I have, but I just have lots of coping mechanisms.
Yes, and that is. I think I probably have it as well, actually. But and
again, I know you have talked about it.
You must go and get diagnosed. Well, no. Maybe if I was 20, but I kind of know myself by now. Yeah. I know what works for me. So that's interesting.
And this is going to really, it's not spook you out, but as I look into your eyes now, it's to say I am desperately trying to live in the moment and to enjoy this and just everything I do. I'm a food and drink journalist. I'm lucky I've got 3 great sons, and a happy marriage, and I'm a lucky lad. There's a lot of good things going in my life, and it's just to try and remember that. There's a lot of, in the bigger, wider world, it's a tough place to be, particularly at the moment. And I just try, without being too naive or glib about it, it's just and like just talking to you today. I thought one of the best things is I could spend some time with you, but one-on-one. It was maybe if we went for a coffee or a beer or whatever, it's the same thing. But it's just to stop and enjoy, and that's what you do cover in your book very much. It's being in the moment.
Well. I'm still learning.
No,
it's all very well writing about it.
Yeah, but you're written. Of course you are. But that's in itself is a great. But also the fact that you are not just verbalizing your thoughts. You're actually putting them down on your print, on your equipment. Your whatever computers are called nowadays, called computers. And and they. So that's it. So when I go through your book, there's so much of it I relate to. I mean, a lot of it's common sense to me because that is it. But it's a matter of putting it into practice, and that's why I love at the end of each chapter you give people coping mechanisms to think, can you do this? But they're not hugely difficult, because otherwise people would never really do them. Yeah,
well, what you just said actually reminded me of another chapter about being thankful, because it does seem for you like things have fallen into place in your life, and you seem to be incredibly
lucky.
Lucky, is the word, but that
you create your own
grateful.
Luck, Paul.
I think we all
do. I think
there's a Roman philosopher, I think, called I've forgotten the name, but I think it was luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Sonata, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Frank. That's true. Yeah. So you were in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
But you'd had enough hard graft years to, when the opportunity came, you jumped in with both feet, it seems. For sure. Yeah.
And there are lots of opportunities I probably haven't done that as well. But I'm not beating myself. You've got to love yourself for what you are and not what you think you should be or what you think other people might want you to be. You've got to do that, because you'd just be beating yourself up all the time.
Isn't that one of the biggest problems in the world now, is people are wanting to be what someone else is doing. Social media is great at that, isn't it?
Bloody hell.
People don't follow their own dreams. They're trying to follow other people's dreams, and it won't work.
Yeah.
Probably it'll never happen, and you'll be bloody miserable while you're trying to follow someone else's dreams rather than following your own heart. How can we, you run across lots of young people in what you do. How do we get them to follow their own dreams and stop trying to follow other people's dreams?
Funny enough, in our business, again, you see some remarkable people who have changed career paths because they always wanted to bake or brew or whatever, and started out doing something else completely different. And that's great to hear it. Everything tastes better with a good story. So if thee and me can tell people's stories, certainly I can do it on air and give a voice to, you know, 3, nearly 4 million people with Greatest Hits Radio. And it's, you know, be it a farmer or someone who isn't particularly erudite, but you can tell their story and why their produce is so good, then that's a massive privilege. So, and also, I do think this generation now, I say our boys, 19, 22, 25, you know, they get used to changing careers. It's you know, the type of core strengths which you can move from different jobs. And I think that's way more used to the generation we talked about always doing the same thing, which is more of our parents and grandparents. Yeah. But just to encourage people to say, if you always wanted to do that, you know, go and have a go. But I think the biggest problem is that it's a bit like the influencers and what have you. So, well, but what's your influence born out of? Where's your experience of worked in an industry to be able to talk about that knowledgeably? Because I do think, you know, you need to have done these things. You need to have made cheese, worked on farms, done whatever, you know, to go out there, and that certainly helps. And I think, but yeah, do follow your dream and don't.
But would you say more people, younger generations, are doing that now than they were?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would as well. I didn't know whether it was just because I was getting older.
No,
but
definitely.
It does. When, you know, 26 years ago, when Cotswold first started, a lot of the people running the businesses were people who had a midlife crisis, left the city and decided to start making cheese or open a shop. And there still are people like that, but there's definitely a lot more younger generations coming straight into the specialty food world than there was.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think they think that's what I like. That whatever generation we're on at the moment, and it's
alpha.
Yeah, I think it's because people do think they want to follow their dreams, or if they've been in a more corporate job for a few years, they say, right, I'm going to take some time out. I'm going to either do a year, you know, 6 months, 12 or 18, and do something else. And that's way more common when you think. And whereas you and I think, well, blimey, I've got a job, I'm going to give it up, you know. And but to explore something else, be it travelling or making something else, or as I say, they always wanted to do, you know, flapjacks or breads, but from ancient grains. Well, this is the opportunity to do it. And I do think, and a lot of that is the joy of the internet, is that there's information out there, and you can, if you do follow. Obviously, it's who you do, but there's a lot of information which you can glean, which we couldn't. It was much harder for us. You'd have to go and see people and make time. I'd have to make time for you. Yeah. And I do think if you can utilise, I do, but the social media side, I do worry with teenagers growing up and everything about, but you must have had this so many times, about how they're perceived to be, their look. You know, what, you know, if you're a young girl, you know, you're a princess, this is and all that. It's so difficult, the pressure that brings onto their lives, rather than thinking, well, no, you know, I don't want to be influenced by that. But it's very easy to say that, because obviously that's the whole culture. So if you can empower people to go away and follow their own dreams, but and if you and I can help youngsters do that, well, you know, lucky us.
And it's about removing the barriers as well, isn't it? Because a lot of them would love to do it but can't, whether it's financial constraints or, you know, looking after elderly parents or something like that. Yeah,
it's funny, the financial constraints, obviously all the elements now, something that I know you do a lot of it, is trying to get people connected and give them leg ups and bursaries or apply for grants and help them to know how to do that, because that in itself is a massive skill.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating because the banks aren't. I was talking to someone over the weekend, I can't remember who it was now, but it was actually one of my neighbours, and he's 82, I think. But he was an entrepreneur, probably dyslexic actually as well, and he had a bank manager that believed in him and lent him some money to start his own business, and he's never looked back. But I think banks aren't doing that anymore, are they? They're not actually helping business.
No.
They're not helping the entrepreneurial culture. So I don't know what we can do about that.
It's a very cautious market at the moment, generally. And I think we see it in hospitality. I think, just very quick to that hospitality, you know, prices have gone up a third. It's expensive to eat out. The only thing possibly is that people might be buying better for home. So when they go and they cook and eat better at home and spoil themselves because they can't afford to go out so much.
No, we found that this year. But that we're looking for, because we want to do some more flourishes. We're looking for investment at the moment, but we've approached them. Oh no, hospitality. We don't want to go anywhere near that.
Well, they're the wrong.
Well, exactly.
If they've got that mindset to start with, they're the wrong investors anyway.
Yes, that is true.
But there are. I'm still amazed. Like Duke's Hill Ham, for instance, they're two Irish lads who worked in the city. And they decided to come out of it and then start looking after food and drink brands.
But the jobs that are still going to be here when AI takes over all the other jobs is going to be hospitality, because people, I can guarantee you, people aren't going to want to sit in a restaurant and have a robot serving them, are they?
No.
Or a robot cooking the meal.
Yeah.
Well, some people might, but McDonald's.
Booze supermarkets, when they took out all their self-checkout, just because.
Yes.
Because they want people were losing, that interaction with human beings.
Yeah, which is
it's obvious.
Is the thing that gives me hope actually when AI takes over, because the human condition is that we need to connect with other humans to be human. I mean, that's apparently, I heard the other day. This is left field, but the only reason Homo sapiens overtook all the other Homo Neanderthals was the ability to cooperate and work together. Neanderthals apparently had a bigger brain than us, but they hadn't worked out how to cooperate.
Yeah. That's absolutely. Cooperation. Funny enough, on that, I have another life as a voiceover artist, so I do that, and I've always loved that because it's completely different to everything I do, but it's still quite creative. So it was a big worry about AI, once you've done your voices, that people can have, a computer can replicate it, or you can, you've recorded so many words, they just stick them all together.
Yes.
But when I'm doing talking books or whatever, there's producers in the studio, they're there, we're a band, and I love that. Those relationships are really close because you work, an audio book could be like 4 days, so you spend it with normally one producer. You get to know them really well, and they give you a really good guide how you're sounding, your pacing. And I just thought, well, that's great, but the minute you lose that, you'll be able to tell that in the way it's all put together.
I hope so. I hope you'll be able to tell. I recorded my books actually. It's the most tedious thing I've ever done actually, because I like deviating off the script. Of course, as soon as you don't make one mistake, back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's helpful in an art, really, because what you know with your good producer there is that you just go to the previous pause or comma. You don't, and you know each other so well. You just start. I'm gonna keep it running, and the idea, I've been doing quite a lot of Formula One books as well. It's been fascinating, and Novak Djokovic's book as well, Searching for Novak. So all of these are great, but actually. You'd love to think you read it all, you made sense of it, you annotated all the. Of course, you haven't. You might have read a few pages every day or the night before, but it's then. And when if you do a paragraph and you look at the producer and go, I could do that better, and they know you, and you do it, and you literally make better sense of it. But you do it quite quickly because you're doing 100 pages a day. And that in itself, you walk away and you think, well, I nailed that. Well done. And in all walks of life, if you come away and you're thinking, well, I did a good job of that. And that's really important to pat yourself on the back and say, bloody well done.
Yeah. Let's change tacks. I wanted to talk about your emotional side, because you seem to me, I don't know you that well, but as someone who's fairly well connected to their emotions. Would you say that? Yeah.
And I'm quite honest with myself, I think,
I mean, do you cry often?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do.
What was the last thing that made you cry?
Oh, but our dog's dying at the moment.
Oh, really?
And it's 13 and a half years. Elsa, brilliant dog. Collie, Lab Cross, and rescue dog. And just brilliant dog. And it's fantastic. They say it's a dog's life. They've got great lives, our dogs. And but what a companion she's been. She's so clever. And she's really sharp. And you just see she's looking at you sometimes. And they did give nothing but affection. So... the thought of her not being around is really sad, and yet it's not a human life or anything. It's our dog, but nearly 14 years she's been there, and I will miss her. So I do, and we are watching TV and stuff. And I've got absolutely no problems with that. And also I trained as an actor, so quite often. Brits aren't very good at delving into the inner, and everyone should actually part of training at school. You should do drama, all of us, because it helps us. We're all a bit, square-jawed, and we don't really look into that inner part for ourselves. And we should do. Not that you want to become an actor. It's just that it gives you access to yourself that we don't normally have. And I do think a lot of education is going to change like that, because like food and drink should be more, and also how to prepare yourself for interviews. The things we've already touched upon about going into a job. Those things should be taught at school. Yeah. And as good as ancient history is and all these different things, actually they're nothing like as relevant. So I do think education in the next decade should change massively.
Totally. Stop teaching facts.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Teach people how to communicate.
Yeah. Communicate and cope. Communicate, that's a big one.
Yeah, because I'm worried about the future of salespeople. I mean, you've been in this world. You already talked about it. It's about connecting with other people. I worry about young people not being able to communicate and sell to people, because you know some of the people work for us on the office based, and you say, have you talked to so and so about that new product or whatever? Oh yeah. So when did you do it? I sent them an email yesterday. Hello, that isn't actually talking.
No.
How are we gonna change that? Because I worry. I mean, I worry every time I go out. I don't get out much, as you know, but
that's not true.
You go to London, go to the gym, and people are spending their whole time looking at the phones rather than communicating with other humans.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know whether it's now or a few years' time, but I think some people are starting to realise how bad that is for us.
Without doubt, absolutely. And at the end of, before you go to bed, they're still on the phones, and your sleep patterns are all over the place, and you wake up exhausted. And that's one of many reasons. But yeah, I think it's really quite obvious, and I think that will come about. But also, I mean, it's typical. We've got three lads who are chatty, but there again, they get a lot of chat at home, and we do. It's an old cliche, but we do sit around and eat together. And during lockdown, we were lucky enough to have them all at home, so that was pretty special.
Yeah, you did some cooking, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Well, the boys. Yeah, we did cooking with the Barden boys, yeah, it was one of them shaved the younger one's head, which gave my wife, who was doing the filming, a bit of a shock when he came down. And obviously they made a bit of a mess of it with the shearers, because there was blood coming down his ear. Well, absolutely. Well, because the other son, I tell you what it's to do with cooking, because the dish used a duck egg. And we got this, and one of them said, "Here, this will help your hair grow, Harry," and cracked it on his head. And my wife was filming it, and she went, "Oh my good God!" And I didn't know, but I love the fact that it's completely improvised, and you never knew what they were going to do. And quite often they did do things which, but I loved that. I thought, well, so the point being, it's that chat stuff. And again, I know I sound like some dinosaur, but we do try and eat together quite a lot, and at a table. And just, have a good wrap.
I mean, your wife being Sicilian
absolutely.
would
She grew up
drive in that direction. And I love Sicily. How do you think you've changed in the last, say, 10 years?
Gosh, that's a good point. I think actually having the lads, because I never thought, because I'm the youngest of three boys, as I said, and they've got children who are older, so I never thought I'd have children or anything like that, or even get married. I was never bothered about it. And so when I did propose to Deborah on an out-of-body experience, watching a guy who looked like me stand up in front of 40 people and ask her to marry him, my mum's 78th birthday, I was watching from the corner of the room on the ceiling, watching the guy who looked like me. Obviously, it was me, but it was completely out-of-body experience. I know, very strange. And so when I woke up the next morning and thinking that was a hell of a dream, I looked at Deborah and went, "Oh my God, no, it's true." And that completely did my nut in. We had to go away for 2 or 3 days just to get my head round it, because I had no plan to do it, but one of the best things. But seeing the boys and, having them in our lives and all their mates and playing sport with them and doing all that has been great. And that's made me, maybe more relaxed, I think. And not to take stuff too seriously. You and I, we're not open heart surgeons. It's food and drink. So the more I do that, and that we can talk about it at ingredients and how people grow it or produce it or brew it or whatever, that's what I loved. And I realised actually what I put on this planet to do was not to act or anything, as much as I like that and love it. It was actually to promote small artisan food and drink producers.
Well, I did actually ask someone what they thought your purpose was, actually. So you see what you think of this. They said it was to enjoy your life, find great things, and share them with others. I thought that was a great summary.
Yeah. Well, lucky me. That's true.
I know.
It's just, yeah.
What's not to like?
I know. And there are just some great stuff. And that moment when you taste something, you think, my goodness. And I asked a brewer years ago in Belgium and what the key ingredient was to his wheat beer. And he said, it's made with luff. And it actually had a slight lisp, but it was luff. Oh, love. And it was, and it made with love. And I just thought, yeah, you're so right, because he really cared about it. He wanted everyone to appreciate it, And there's nothing worse than a brewer leaves your brewery in brilliant condition, and when you go and have it in the bar or pub, or particularly if it's a real ale and hand pulled, I think, what have we done to my lovely beer and the journey from there to here? But he did that, and he said, and that is love is if you care about it, and that comes through. It's a bit like doing a job. Only living for the weekends and the evenings because you're just earning money to do change your job. Do a job you really want to do. You might not earn as much brass as to say we're from, but you'll still really love it. And this guy, this brewer, I'm thinking absolutely right. And I actually gave him a big hug. It was a huge bear of a man because I just thought that's fantastic. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you just dropped into conversation about this out-of-body experience thing. What was going on there then?
Well, I knew we'd been going out 4 or 5 years, and I got it completely wrong about 8-9 months earlier. We'd gone up to Scotland. And bear in mind, Deborah, she touched on, she's Deborah Dolce, half Sicilian, grew up in Italy. Her mum is from Birmingham. So there's quite an interesting gene pool there. And her dad was a Sicilian film actor and was at film school with Sofia Loren and Gina Lollobrigida in Rome, as you do. So they're really interesting. So she came over as a teenager and ended up, it was like Palermo, Rome, Birmingham. So it was a bit of a culture shock. But yeah, we got on well. We met in a sauna party in Lapland, as you do, and because I was doing a radio broadcast out there, and she was looking after an agency and all things sustainable from Finland. And we'd gone out, but both of us had come out quite long relationships, so we weren't looking for partners and everything. But as the relationship went on, I put together a great food and drink tour of Scotland, which I love. And again, I played rugby in the Borders and learnt to ski at Aviemore and, Loch Lomond every year on holiday, and really love Scotland. And so we went up there, and we went to Altnaharry, this fantastic one-star Michelin restaurant at Ullapool, and they pick you up in a boat. You think it's going to be a big old boat. It's like a tiny little fishing boat, and take you across. And there were 8 couples there, and which only one was from Scotland. And they'd come from all around the world. And Gun Eriksson was the Swedish chef. She was there, and I think fed Murray or something, I can't remember, but he was a vet from Inverness, and he looked after front of house. And we went there, and we'd been on this tour, so we'd stayed in gastropubs, we'd stayed at B&Bs, a real variety of stuff. But as we went on, Deborah's mood got darker, and I couldn't understand why, because she loves food and drink and everything. So I rang her best mate up, Genevieve, and I said, look, Jen, she said, how's it going? How's it going? I said, well, it's brilliant in many ways, and the food and drink is great. He said, but Deborah seems to be retreating from me a bit. And I only said, so you haven't asked her? I said, well, what? I've asked her where she wants. He said, no. Anyway, he said, you haven't asked her to marry you because she thought, and I went, no, I didn't. And so I knew that, and when I did the outer body, it was the best thing I've ever done. It was because she's a remarkable person, and that's been good. So actually, but definitely all of that changed my life, and was also great because I was able to think about her, but also the lads when they came along. And I like the fact that we could. It's not about me and her all the time; it's about them.
Yeah, I like that. I did ask someone whether there was a spiritual side to you, and they said they didn't know. But this is really interesting. I didn't expect this. They said, if there was, it would be Buddhism. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, no, I like. But we live near a Buddhist temple near us, and I just like the ethos, the fact that you can come and turn up and people will feed you, and if you want to go and
it's all about food.
Yeah, absolutely. and interestingly, silence, because quite a lot of people in the one near us, they go for silent retreats. Not all of them. And you can tell with the monks or nuns as you meet them on the park, because I see them walking all the time, and go in. It's great food on a Sunday. It's free, but you just take something you think you'll need, and normally loo rolls. But but the point being is that they're very welcoming as a community. Yeah. And if people want to go there and just have a silent retreat or what have you, well, let them get on with it. And I just think that's it. And we're not trying to kill people. And we're trying to be loving and kind. And I just think it's a very simple thing. And I don't know, I just think there's way too much anger out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. But apparently they're the only religion that doesn't try and convert people as well.
Yeah, another great reason.
I know, much better to love people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the temple there, a few times, if ever I wanted to get away and just have a bit of quiet time, I go to this temple. And no one ever, going away, but everything come in, who am I? No idea. And just sit there, and it's the most beautifully serene. I can smell the wood as well. There's a lot of wood, and it's just great.
Is it busy? Are there a lot of people like you that just drop in?
Sometimes. I think it can be all things to all people. But I understand, and a lot of people come out of the cities, be it Birmingham, London, to go to this place.
Okay.
And I can see why. It's just a lot of genuinely happy people, and a lot happier for going into that environment and just sharing whatever they've got. But I love the fact they're breaking bread with each other, sharing food, which obviously for me is a great thing. And I don't know, I just think, Buddhism, I really like it, and I was lucky enough to spend a bit of time, in Thailand and different places. So always will go to a temple and everything, because I just feel relaxed and it's serene, and they feed you.
They do at Sikh places. I went to a Sikh temple and one in Delhi about a year ago, and like 200,000 people they feed every week of the year. It's astonishing. Yeah. Incredible. You went in the kitchens, and these pots they were stirring were probably 3 times the size of this table. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah, and again, community, looking after people.
Yeah.
I love India. I've spent 5 or 6 trips there, and it's just an adventure waiting to happen. And I absolutely love the country because it's just full of surprises and some incredible people, some very kind people, and who just give. And there are some people on the planet who just give a lot back, and you second time repeat it. You get back what you give out, but not that you're thinking to intentionally do it, because sometimes you're doing it without anyone knowing it. And again, I noticed in your book, it's the best ones who are doing it incognito. They just happen to be doing. They're not looking for any form of it. It just makes them feel better themselves, but also they can benefit other people.
And most religions in the world have something like that, don't they? You give what you get, or karma, or whatever. And reap and you will. What was it?
Yeah, so absolutely.
So
which again,
reap, what would you say? I'm interested. We've not got much time left, but would you say that kind of spirituality manifests in what you do on a kind of day-to-day basis? And if so, how?
I didn't think it was ever strange, but my children have told me it is a bit weird, but during lockdown, and because I'm a food and drink journalist, I've always got stuff in the house. I've always got bottles and cans, and I do a lot with Low and No as well. It's one of the big things. Yeah. So I've always got juices and what have you. And whenever I am in and we get a delivery, I always, if I can, give them something. A juice, or I've said, did you drink alcohol? I might have a bit. I actually buy beers for that very reason, just to give away.
Right. Okay.
And you can, and what's staggering is that various people just tell you that actually either no one's ever done, or very few people have done it, and they must have delivered literally thousands of stuff, because they do hundreds a day. But, and I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't someone just say thanks?
Yeah. And we do that as well.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife was telling me off the other day, and we were around at some friends, and we had this Macedonian lady coming from Thames Water, and she thought it was a bit odd because they were testing the water, which we'd never heard of before. So I got talking to her, and I've got some Macedonian products in the garage where she keeps all her samples. So I sent her away with these Ivars and some pumpkin jam. Yeah.
I get it, and the look on someone's face, and that's it, because the joy is in the giving, always.
Yeah.
And just to, so the lads, oh gosh, he was rummaging in the garage, with all the, but just great to be able to do that, and why wouldn't you? And to also to engage, and a lot of people I've seen regularly and know really well, and a few of them have got, and invariably have got great stories. They're not. If you just find the time and ask a few questions, these people could be, doctors, barristers, wherever they come from, and it's just we're lucky to have them, and it's just great to be able to say, here you go, when you've at the end of work have this, or you can drink and drive with this one because there's no booze in it. You know, but why wouldn't you do that?
So I put your career into AI and put in some transcripts of previous podcasts and asked it, say, what are some good questions to ask Nigel?
Gosh.
And this was one of them, right? So what mantra has carried you through your life?
Well, it's one I just repeated.
What we just said, yeah.
It's I actually, again, on that note, but the other one was, listen to the little voice in the back of your head. And the longer you've been on this planet, you and I, you just tend to know.
Yeah.
But listen, think, I'm not sure about that. Or actually. Or sometimes just go and do it. Just think, go and embrace it. I worked on a show called Ready, Steady, Chuck, which was a food and drink thing, which I was going to take to the Edinburgh Festival and do. And it was where this food and drink demo goes terribly wrong, and I end up chopping my thumb off. And also, actually, because I did at the time before I went on the radio with Simon Mayer once, managed to take the end of my thumb off, and had to get it sewn on afterwards at the University College. And the guy was sewing back. I said, I did one of your dishes last week. I said, that's great. I said, would you mind just sewing my thumb back on before we talk about the dish? And it was, but the upshot was at the end of this, I let them electrocute myself, and anyway, I never did it because of work, and I probably was too afeared to do it, that. And also it was probably quite expensive to do and to get sponsorship. So I didn't. And yet I'd got it quite well worked up. And the guy I was going to produce it with, who was a stand-up comedian as well, but also a producer. And I've cleaned this up, but he did say, well, either defecate or get off the pan, one or the other. And I got off the pan. And I do wish that I definitely just really frightened myself and done it, because I don't know where it would have ended up with, but I didn't do it. And I remember thinking, so whenever I say, well, just bloody do it, and I've done it ever since then. I don't think I've ever I've ever turned down. And any opportunity people say, can you do this, or would you like to do that? Money is not that relevant anyway. But just saying, well, if I can, why not? Hell, let's do it.
Yeah. Good place to end. So we'll come on to the questions that I asked you in advance. So one piece of advice you wish you'd had when you started out, but didn't.
Well, the piece of advice I did have, just I'm going to turn it on its side, was always be on time or early. And I'm not a great timekeeper. I've tried to get better, and that's one of the things I've tried to put in place. Setting alarms. Like today, I was actually outside early, but and I think I worry sometimes it comes over as being rude or arrogant, or you think you're more important than the other person who you kept waiting. And there's a great drama coach for me, George Hall, when I was at Barder, and he remembers saying, Nigel, there are a lot of great actors out there, and you could be a good actor, and he said, I think you've got the makings of it, but most of them are either not on time, they're early. And unless you are, they'll go with the other ones. And I remember thinking, so remember that. And the other one, I slightly touched on them, is about, get back what you give out, listen to the little voice. Funny enough, one of the pieces of advice I got was join the army. And the irony is I'd already done that, because when I was 13, I joined the army, and I obviously lied on all my forms. And Dad, yes, because I was too young. Yeah. And the the army recruiting officer came round to the house and said, "Is Nigel?" He said, "No, he's at school." He said, "Well, he signed the papers, he's joining the army." And he went, "Is he? Right. Well, I might have to have a chat with him about that, and maybe he won't be this. Not in the next 6 months anyway."
Give you a ring in 3 years.
No, funny enough. And I thought, well, I'm going to join the army. Dressing up box. It'll suit me.
How your life might have been different.
Yes, But funny enough, our middle son has joined and he did neuroscience at Leeds, and he could work with animals. But he's actually joined the paratroopers as just to keep really fit. And I think, and also so we can jump out of aeroplanes and someone else is paying for it. And he's like a tattooed piece of biltong at the moment. I've never seen someone look so fit. But I don't think. But he will. But yeah. So, but I think one thing I know what it's like. He likes the discipline of doing stuff that he knows he won't like, and people shouting at him, and him just thinking, well, I'm going to do it just for the hell of it. And I think, well, good on you, kid.
And from the book Fourth Bottom Line, I don't know how far you got through it, but what characteristic of leadership kind of particularly speaks to you at the moment?
Well, these are ones that actually I need to look at. Is one of them was joyful, to be joyous, inclusive, available, which was I loved, because being available in the moment. And I thought it wasn't just about actually making yourself available for work or whatever it is. It's actually when you're with people, to be living in the moment, to be available to them and not to be thinking about other stuff, which, I think certainly as a self-employed, the haunted look of a self-employed. So that was something, and also self-sacrificial, and so I made notes on all of these actually, and I just thought, I love the quotes as well. Mother Teresa, a joyful heart is the normal result of a heart burning with love. She gives most who gives with joy. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's exactly what we've touched upon, about the joy is in the giving.
Yeah.
And Pope Francis, and I'm interested, I didn't quite believe him when I agree with him. He says, it makes me sad when I find sisters who aren't joyful. They might smile, but with just a smile, they could be flight attendants. And I remember thinking, well, you've got to presume that all flight attendants are only doing it, to be. Some of them might really mean it. So I thought he was being a bit disingenuous there. Bless him, because he's no longer with us. But I said, but crucial that the smile is genuine. And I've written the name down, Russell here. Because a friend of mine who was a rugby commentator. And obviously I touched upon that, but I've done that all my life. And someone said, just make it entertaining. But, so I'd often make a game much more interesting than ever it was, just by lying. And people look around and think, is he talking to the same game about me? But just think, well, it's radio, it's fine. But Russell was one of the most joyous people. And once he caught me trying to put a brick through my car because I'd locked all my broadcast equipment in the car outside London Irish. He said, what are you doing? I said, it's in there, I can't get in it, I've got to go on air. He said, no, we'll help you get on it. And he got everyone in there to lend kit, and he put me on air. And I remember and he was the most kind, lovely man. He'd do the interview. If you hadn't got, he'd give you his. And he's no longer with us, and it's really sad because I think of Russell every night. I think of a list of people who've made influences onto my life. Obviously, mum and dad and what have you. But every night, obviously, it's a growing list. But but as I go to sleep, I think about them. That's my spiritual prayer bit.
Gratitude as well.
Yeah, and way too many of them, like Russell, are far too young, and he's not with us anymore. And because when he wasn't out there, he had, he went to a dark place, and I just wish I'd been aware of that, to say that to Russell or him, me. So. Yeah, Stillwater, never think it is as people always presume. And when people shout at you in a car or on the street or something, and you think you're having a bad day because you've just manifested your anger, but it's probably another reason altogether. And just to say, are you all right? Do you need, if they thump you, well, you've gone too far, but otherwise, sometimes they do.
That's a good place to end. Thanks so much for not only being entertaining, but also we've got inside you, which is the whole purpose of this podcast, to find out a little more about the inside version of Nigel. So thanks very much for your openness and your honesty.
No, thank you. And that's typical of you. And it's great that you've actually made this happen. And you are a stage in your life where, you're very honest and open. And you can see that in your books. But I've seen you on stage. And also that you will get the best out of people. And as Brits, or European, but Brits particularly, if we can open it up and be more honest about how we are. And if we are having a bad day, tell people you're having a bad day. And the mere conversation will make it feel like a better day.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nigel, for being on Fourth Bottom Line.
Thanks for having me.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fourth Bottom Line. Please hit subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and do leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to learn more about my work, follow me on LinkedIn, visit my website, paulhargreaves.co.uk, or look out for my 2 books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. Thank you so much for listening.